Infrastructure delivery and power sector revitalization. What were the promises? What is the reality? We'll be focusing on roads, rail, electricity supply, and the visible completion of projects before 2027. Good morning and welcome to another edition of The Agenda. I am Chike Obogu, coming to you live from Ibadan, the heartbeat of Oyo State. When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed office in 2023, his renewed hope agenda promised a revolution in infrastructure, emphasizing energy, transport, and housing to drive economic growth. But you see, nearly 3 years in, how do those promises stack up against reality? To help us unpack this and many more, I'm joined by Comrade Ignatius Ofino, an economist and public affairs commentator. Welcome to the show, Ignatius. It's good to have you.
Good morning, Chike Obogu.
That name again.
Mazi Chike Obogu.
It's good to have you here again.
I'm delighted to be here this morning.
And then we're going to be discussing this vital topic, where we had promises and the failures. However, let's dive right in as we start off. We'll structure our discussion around 3 key areas, or maybe 4, starting with roads. Then we go to rail, power sector, and finally, we'll take a look at the outlook for project completions before 2027. And then later we take a listener and viewer questions towards the end. As you can send your messages via the app X at DominionCast, Well, Ignatius, the administration inherited over 2,000 ongoing road projects valued at trillions of naira. And then you had promises included. Promises like modernizing transport networks with projects like the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway and even the Sokoto-Badagry Highway. To ask you now, what is the reality on ground in 2026 before we look at the projection of 2027?
Good intention is not enough, but implementation. Whenever you have a good idea or a good plan, what most people are more interested in is the execution. Government is a continuum, but there's one thing I've discovered about politicians in this part of the world. They keep making empty promises that they know that it will be very difficult for them to implement. But for the sake of campaigning, they want to make promises. There is one thing we also have to understand when it comes to the issue of infrastructure. Infrastructure is very costly. There is a cost attached to it. And when we are talking about project must be open. In this country, we should ask ourselves, do we run an open government? How transparent is the issue of project bidding in this country? Let me give you an example. The Lagos-Calabar Superhighway. There was nothing like open bidding for that project. So it became a subject of controversy in Nigeria. So you are not talking about open government. We actually have an open government. Now, there's one thing I've discovered in this country again. Overinflated contracts. Multiple contracts again. It has been a problem. Corruption has always been the problem. We don't really know how to manage limited financial resources. And mind you, there's one thing you must also understand concerning our currency. The volatility of the foreign exchange rate. Our currency is weak. It's not a strong currency. So there's a problem on ground. So that is why sometimes projects are bound to be revoked because of the volatility in the foreign exchange regime of the country. So there is a problem on ground. So what politicians normally do is this. They want to do what Nigeria want to hear. And what do we want to hear? We are going to construct road. We want to construct more road. We construct more rail lines. But at the end of the day, they will do nothing. And there is no consequence for that. The politicians know that if they make an empty promise, there is not bound to be what we call consequence.
You talked about the revocation of some projects.
Yes.
And that has to do with contractors.
Yes.
Now, for contractors, there are some contractors who would even execute a project, but they don't get paid. There was a protest recently by contractors who protested non-payment of their funds. Doesn't this lead to frustration on the part of contractors? Some of them would even want to do a wishy-washy job, knowing fully well that they'll still be owed.
The issue there is the fault of the government, the client. There is one thing you must understand when we are talking about public infrastructure. There is difference between politicking and governance. Governance is about service delivery to the people. The people want quality roads. They want quality rail system. They want quality transportation system. They want what we call quality education. They want what we call quality healthcare delivery system. The government is saddled with that responsibility to do it on behalf of the people based on limited resources. So what the government normally do is this. Sometimes if you know you have a limited resources, you now go by the way of what we call public-private partnership. Build, occupy, transfer. Build, occupy, transfer. So it's the fault of the government. Now, the major contractor that you are seeing today, most of them don't have money for the execution of projects. They depend on what? Loans from bank. And that loan is not a zero interest loan. It is a loan that is tied to an interest rate, probably 30%. And you have to service that loan on a monthly basis. So the government, to me, is not being fair. There is a way the government can be able to go about the issue of public infrastructure. The best way to go about is what? Is what we call public-private partnership. Because financial resources is what? Is limited. Now, when we are talking about shady jobs, it's the fault of the government, not the fault of the contractor. There must be consequence. The government has every right to supervise ongoing public projects.
So you're saying when these contractors get frustrated, is the fault of government?
It's the fault of the government, but there must be penalty for shady jobs. There must be penalty. Sometimes we have what we call road engineers.
Who penalizes who?
The government has the right to penalize. The government is the client.
Okay.
It's different from the contractor.
Okay.
The contractor's reputation is at stake when you do a shady job. That is why before you award a contract, there must be what we call open bidding. We must know whether this contractor, they are being registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. It must be known what is their asset, what is their liability. Do they have enough equipment? A lot of things like that. Can they be trusted? But government has compromised because government has what? A hidden agenda. Government has interest.
You've talked about the punishment, but frustration there and frustration indeed for the old contractors. We've seen reports of old contractors and even works that have been stalled. But on a positive note, if we must look at this, the Lokoja-Benin corridor is at about 60% to 65% completion, as reported by the Minister of Works, Senator Engineer David Umai, former governor of Ebonyi State, who is the Minister of Works. So what do you think needs to change before we start looking at punishments?
You know, there is one thing. We have to change our attitude. Let's call a spade a spade. The political will must be there that we want to develop Nigeria infrastructurally. We want Nigeria to become the Dubai of Africa. It is possible. The resources are available, both the financial resources and the material resources. When you are talking about limestone, Nigeria is so endowed naturally with limestone. When you are talking about iron ore. Nigeria is blessed with iron ore deposits. When you are talking about crude oil and gas reserve, we have more than enough. So what's the problem? When you are talking about the labor force are there too. But our problem has always been the corruption instinct in us. The corruption instinct. What stops Nigeria building a super highway that will last in the next 100 and 200 years? As a memorial in our archives that 200 years ago, our forebears built this road, and this road is still lasting. But do you know what politicians are doing? They build a road that will not last for more than 6 months. Then you now see patching the road.
Until it is re-awarded.
And re-awarded again. The corruption instinct has been the problem. The corruption instinct in the mindset of those who govern us. They are not interested in legacies, good legacies. So it has been the problem. So when we are talking about infrastructural development, it is a welcome development for this country because you need the road network. When you are talking about industrialization of your country, you have to put into consideration good road network. When you are talking about the state that has the best intra-road network, intra-road network, it is Abuja. Those who have visited Abuja before, you look at it. Underground tunnel is there too. So it has one of the best intra-road network in Africa. So it's a model. We can decide to say, let us replicate it in the state capitals in Nigeria. So when we are talking about road network, we need a good road network in Nigeria. What about the issue of feeder roads in the rural areas?
And even link roads.
Yes, you have to provide feeder road and link roads in the rural area because rural area, they are the food basket of the nation. And we cannot survive without food. Most of these rural areas, they are not accessible. They are Nigerians. We always need their vote. Do you know sometimes we rig elections in rural areas? Are we now being fair to them?
Do you have an evidence to prove that? Have you seen that happen?
It has happened.
In rural areas?
In rural areas, no network.
And so what then happens when there's no network?
Goes. They rig a candidate to become elected. They also rig a candidate to lose election.
Oh, interesting. Well, let's move away from the roads now. Let's go to the rail. And the Renewed Hope agenda promised expanding networks with projects like the Kano, Maradi, and Kaduna-Kano nearing completion. Even updates from 2026 show over 240 billion naira budgeted for rail. But asking you, is there the promise made then, is it a reality today?
For now, at least...
as per this rail issue.
For the issue of rail issue, we have been playing politics with it for too long. When you are talking about the rail transport, it is one of the oldest transport systems in Nigeria. It was one of the largest employer of labor. Do you know what came into my mind now? I remember Pa Michael Imodu, the labor union leader.
Former NLC.
Yes! He was also a railway worker. He was there, he was part of them. They were the largest employer of what? Of labor in Nigeria. But how sustainable is the rail system in Nigeria? Do you know where we call cargo rail? Where they used to import cattle from the north down to the south. Then there was nothing like trailer. There was nothing like long truck. But do you know it was a conspiracy? There was a conspiracy against the rail transport in Nigeria. That was what gave birth to trailer. And trailer is causing more accidents in Nigeria. Trailer is destroying our roads. That's the truth. It's destroying our roads. Do we have weighing bridge? Are we not supposed to have weighing bridge along our toll gate so that every trailer that is traveling down to any part of the country, you weigh the goods. Then you have to, it attracts what we call damages. They have to pay for damages because they are damaging our roads. That's the truth. If you want your road to last longer, you go by the way of rail. Rail will be able to take a lot of goods, a lot of cattle, more than trailer. But when you look at the owners of trailers in Nigeria today, they are the big wigs. They are the big wigs. So it was a conspiracy on the part of those who own trailers in this country to destroy the rail system.
So the promises made then are not even a reality now.
For now, the reality is not still fixable.
Okay.
But there was one time when late President Muhammadu Buhari decided, you know, Rotimi Amici was the Minister of Transport.
Yes.
They now said they want to build a railway from Nigeria to Niger.
Yeah.
At least an inter-railway network. Probably it will boost what we call trade between Nigeria and Niger. But it was more political than being economic. So we have to be frank and sincere with us when we come to issue of the railway system. Let us celebrate Lagos State. Lagos State is trying with its intra-rail network. The blue line is there.
Blue line, yeah.
Yes.
Blue rail line.
Yeah, the blue rail line is there. It's commendable. There are different. There is what we call tramp. Tramp is also a form of transportation system, but it moves on air. There is a way it has cable.
Yeah.
Yes, it has cable. Those are the things that make your city look beautiful. You know, there used to be a slogan: "See Paris and die." Paris is the capital of what? Of France.
Yeah.
There is nothing wrong if we can be able to ensure that our own state capital also look attractive, so that it can be able to attract what we call foreign direct investment. And there is what we in tourism too. So the rail system, to me, the government has that political will to ensure that it is feasible and it come into reality.
You know, at some point, this government, the Renewed Hope agenda, promised part of their roadmap was to connect the 36 states of the federation. Well, many saw it as being ambitious but feasible before 2027. But what's the reality today? Have they been able to connect the 36 states of the country via rail?
It's very difficult for now because the country is a loan-dependent economy. Loan-dependent. This country is already a defaulter before the face of the creditor. Though they have told us in the economies that no economy can survive without borrowing. But I see it as a fallacy. When you manage your resources very well, if I thought you are going to borrow, you borrow less. But Nigeria now has decided to turn its economy into a loan-dependent economy, especially fiscal deficit. The shortfalls are there. How do we execute the budget? The revenue generation is low. Now, when you look at the present government we're having in Nigeria today, there's what we call expansionary fiscal policy and contractionary fiscal policy. When you're talking about expansionary fiscal policy, you are government looking for a way to generate more revenue. That is why they do what? They expand the tax net.
Yeah, hereby
they can tax anything. If possible, they can tax the oxygen you and I breathe. That is expansionary fiscal policy. You
say government can tax anything?
Anything. Again, they can decide to raise the interest rate on loan. So for now, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a capitalist to the core. What he has decided to introduce in his own form of economic theory has been what we call expansionary fiscal policy.
But if there is an attempt to increase the interest on loans, that will be stifling small and medium-scale enterprises.
Do they care? They don't care. You know, when you are talking about small-scale business enterprises, those are the things that make the economy to grow. But the economy will not survive and grow without a stable power supply. And we can never have a stable power supply in this country. Ask me why. Do you know why?
I'm still trying to imagine why you said that.
Do you know why we can never have a stable power supply in this country?
Why?
There are two reasons. One, the conspiracy theory. Those who are importing generators into this country, they will not allow us to have a stable power supply. That is one. Then two, that is very fundamental and germane, the failure of the government to develop the steel industry. Most of the electrical installations today, they have been derived from where? They are steel products. You are talking about the cables, steel product. You are talking about the grid, steel product. You are talking about the wires, steel product. You are talking about transformers. They are all steel products. Sometimes we keep blaming the minister of power. We should stop blaming the minister of power. Both past and present. It's not their fault.
Okay, so we'll go on this break now, and when we come back, we'll delve into the power sector. Stick around. Don't go away. All right, welcome back from that break. It's still the agenda. And now let's look at the power sector. A perennial pain point, and that is the power sector. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised revitalization, including 24 hours power supply. But in 2026, the Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, assured reliable supply this year. But we had 2 or 3 grid collapses already. Generation hovers at 5,000 megawatts, despite the 13,000 megawatt capacity. What is really wrong with the power sector? Ignatius Ofino.
Thank you, Chike. Like what I keep saying, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. The failure of the government to develop the steel industry is responsible for the epileptic supply of electricity in Nigeria.
How? Because don't you think that is just an isolated problem? That's just one out of many.
It's not an isolated problem. All the electrical components are product of steel. We are blessed with iron ore. What stops the government developing the Ajaokuta steel complex?
Now, is it the non-functionality of the steel industry or the Ajaokuta Steel Company that is causing a power grid collapse?
Let me give you an example. Most of those grids, they are old. They need replacement. They are steel components.
But monies have been budgeted for the power sector since 1999.
Money may have been budgeted.
Are you saying that these monies can't even buy imported materials, spending
even though the money is spent judiciously, it cannot cover the electricity need of the country.
Okay.
The energy consumption of the country. We have about 200 million people. Over 200 million people. What about the housing? The number of houses in Nigeria today? There is one thing when we are talking about economic planning and economic development. There is a way you go about it. Agricultural development precedes industrial development. You have to develop the agricultural sector first before you now decide to develop the industrial sector. That is economic theory for you. So when you want to enjoy a stable power supply, the first thing you have to do, you have to develop your steel industry first. Because when you're talking about power generation today, there are many ways you can generate electricity. You can generate electricity through water, hydro energy. Yes. You can generate electricity through wind. Okay. You can generate electricity through solar. That is the sun. You can generate electricity through gas. You can generate electricity through what we call geothermal. Thermal means heat. Then geo means earth, volcanoes. You can generate electricity from nuclear power.
And biogas.
And biogas too.
Okay.
There are many ways. Nature has so blessed us in this country. But the problem is this. We are putting the cart before the horse.
So what is a cart? What is a horse?
Now, you have to develop the steel industry first. When you develop the steel industry first, then you now produce and manufacture the steel products that will be required for the electrification of the country. We need transformer, fine. They are steel products. We need cables. They are steel products. We need grids. They are steel products. We need wires. They are steel products. You know the concrete poles. The concrete poles too. They need iron rods.
Iron rods.
Iron rods too are steel products. So the Minister of Power and the Minister of Steel will work together. But the buck stop on the table of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, not the Minister of Power, not the Minister of Steel. Does the President have that political will to develop the steel industry? Sometimes you may want to say you want to go and buy transformer. But because of the conspiracy theory, those who are manufacturing transformer may refuse to sell it to you. What do? Now, I will give you an example about the issue of the conspiracy theory again. Those who are importing generator into this country. Do you know that where they are manufacturing this generator, they don't use generator to generate electricity in their own country? Is that not an irony?
They are manufacturing for the market.
Yes, they are manufacturing it for the market. They are not using it in their own economy. Now, stable power supply drives the economy. When you are talking about trade and commerce, that ensures that there is economic growth. You talk about work, micro, small scale enterprises. You now talk about small scale enterprises too. Then you now talk about medium scale enterprises before you now talk about the large scale businesses. So when you are talking about micro scale enterprises, you are talking more about the artisans, those who barb the barbers that barb our hair, those who are hairdressers too, those who use what we call grinding mills to grind some of our foods too. They need electricity too. So we need a stable electricity in this country if we want our economy to grow. But it can never grow without electricity. It can never grow if we fail to develop the steel sector. Because we need all these things. Nature has so blessed us, but we don't have the right leadership that has that political will. Sometimes the president may be saying that if I ban importation of generators now, the cabal will fight me. That is what your president will say. He doesn't have that political will. But if it is in the side of the people, he's going to tell the people that I want to ban the importation of generator into this country. I want to develop the steel industry in Nigeria. Then those who want to fight him, he will not publish their names. Then you and I will now know that those cabal are the enemies of the masses, and we are going to fight against them and defend our president. That's the political will.
So now you're saying the only problem we're facing in the power sector right now is the lack of a functional steel company.
Yes.
Is that the only problem?
It's not the only problem. I will give you again an issue.
All right.
Now, when you look at the power sector, before it was a public corporation. Okay. When it was called NEPA, National Electric Power Authority of Nigeria, NEPA then. The federal government now discovered that they were not even providing enough energy for the good people of Nigeria. So there is difference between privatization and commercialization. Public corporation is not meant for making profit. The government never established public corporation to make profit. But because of mismanagement and corruption, that was why the government had decided to go for the option of what? Privatization. When you are talking about commercialization of public corporation, what you are trying to do is this. You want the public corporation to be generating profit. But the government now decided, let's go by the way of privatization. They now decided to privatize NEPA. When they privatized NEPA now, it was no longer NEPA. It was now called Power Holding Company of Nigeria. It was not a full privatization. It was what we call partial privatization. The federal government has some percentage of stake in it. Now, we have what we call generating companies. We have, when we look at power is divided into three sectors. We have
the GenCos,
generation, transmission, and distribution. Yes. For the generation, we have GenCos.
Yes, GenCos.
Then for the transmission, we have TCN. Then for the distribution, we have DISCOs.
Yes.
So when you are talking about DISCOs now, DISCOs is being run by private companies. So DISCOs for now is the problem. So when you are talking about TCN now will be telling you that GenCos are owing them money. Now, we have what we call gas supply. Those who are supplying the gas to GenCos. Those supplying the gas to GenCos, they are being owed. Power generation can never occur without the supply of gas. Those GenCos is owing the gas supplier. There was a time the gas supplier reacted that they will stop the supply of gas to GenCos. And if they don't supply gas to GenCos, we will not have stable power supply. But there is a problem on ground now. Before, we used to use what we call analog meter or post-paid meter. Now we are using what we call prepaid meter. People are now buying it. The government promised to supply us free. But there is an issue on ground now. The World Bank project, there is a World Bank project presently on the issue of electricity. World Bank sponsored free metering for Nigerians.
Yeah, but there's been a clarification. Now, the meters, as announced by Mr. Minister, yes, free meters.
Yes.
However, the meters are free for those on band A and band B. But from band C, D, and E, they have to pay, buy these meters, and then they are loaning the distribution companies these monies. They get these meters, and then when they recharge, the monies are returned to them based on units. They call it the MAP system. Meter position of, they call it the MAP system. So it's been clarified that yes, there are free meters, but it's for only band A and band B.
For certain few, not for the masses. Why must it be so? When we are talking about a just society, you must provide what we call basic amenities for everyone. Why should the masses be deprived? When you are talking about band C, band D, band infinity, you are talking about the energy being consumed by the masses, by the ordinary Nigerians. But when you are talking about band A, band B, you are talking about businesses. They consume more. Why, do you know that in this country, we have some region in this country that don't pay for electricity bill?
Is that possible?
Yes!
How?
We used to hear it.
But we've not verified that.
That is what we used to hear. They said they own the Kainji Dam. They said they own the Kainji Dam. They are not willing to pay for what we call electricity bill. That it is those of us from the south that are actually paying for energy consumption. Is that not an injustice? So when we are talking about the power sector, you don't blame the cabinet minister in that ministry. Look at one of our referred legal luminary, the late Chief Bola Ige. They decided to appoint him as the Minister of Power. Just to run down his word, his reputation. Do you know that in this country, there is what we call Integrated Power Project, IPP project, very laudable. Last week or so, or thereabout, the president said that electricity subsidy is going to be shared between the federal government and the state. Sometimes I said, how possible is that going to be? Because I remember when Dr. Mrs. Okonjo Iweala brought a suggestion of sovereign wealth fund.
Yes.
It was a laudable idea. It was the same governors, your governors, that raised objection that the money should be shared. This woman was our own version of Nostradamus. She saw the future,
tomorrow.
yes, of Nigerian economy. In our brother's suggestion during the days of Jonathan, that let us have a sovereign wealth fund in order to protect our economy against the future. The same elected governor, they now said, no. After some time, they now went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said the federal government does not have any right to deprive the state of any of their allocation. At the end of the day, they have to share the money. For now, what the money was used for, we don't know.
Well,
so there's a big problem on ground in this country.
Well, the maps that I was talking about is the meter asset provider scheme.
Yes.
That's the maps
Yes.
for the discos, where they lend you lend them money by paying money for the meters, but when you recharge, when you get units, they return it back to you with extra units. And that's what they do for a period of time until your money elapses there.
Do you know that they are also exploiting the Nigerian consumer? Estimated billing system. That's fraud. They are still doing it up to date. We have some communities in Nigeria today, no meter.
But
so what they normally do is what? Estimated billing system.
Yes, so
some are still using the analog meter.
So the discos, with emphasis of where our own location and jurisdiction, IBEDC has said, if you don't have meters, go get a meter instead of using direct light, because at the end of the day, you can't measure the quantity of electricity you use.
If you don't
so
have
they estimate the
connection,
billing.
you may not get the meter. Is it not Nigeria?
Let them try.
That is why you keep seeing people saying that may Nigeria not happen to you.
Let them try.
Sometimes they will say, may Nigeria not happen to you. Each time I hit at that word, my heart bleeds.
Because
Nigeria
of our
is a great
time.
country.
Because of our time, let's move forward. When you look at all these things, visibly, do you have any visible completions before 2027
For now,
for all these projects?
for now, it is not possible. It's not possible.
It's not possible.
Because it's not possible. Because when you look at budget deficit, our budget has not been performing to the expected reality.
So how do you know? Because in recent time, we don't even know if we have a budget deficit or a budget surplus. We don't even know what is happening. Recently, we had ministers face committee chairmen in the Senate, and they are complaining of non-release of funds to execute projects. So we don't even know if these budgets are deficit, surplus. We don't know what's going on.
It has always been fiscal deficit. It's a big problem. No release of funds for the execution of public projects. Who is to blame? You blame Mr. President. He's in charge. The buck stop on his table. You have to mandate the Minister of Finance and the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria when it comes to the issue of allocation, statutory allocation to various ministries, departments and agencies of government.
Maybe the Minister of Finance is trying to cut excessive spending, and that's why Mr. President also made him the coordinating Minister of the Economy, trying to coordinate the economy and make sure that they're not frivolous spending in some of these ministries.
What about the issue of budget padding? The budget padding.
Does it still happen?
It happens.
It still happens?
Do you think you can trust the average Nigerian politician?
Well, let's give
Can
them.
the average Nigerian politician be trusted?
Well, let's go straight to questions. We have questions from our listeners. Folorun Shaw here is asking, will we see 24/7 power before 2027 Ignatius? Asking you.
It's not possible.
Okay.
I'm a realist.
Okay.
I'm blunt. That is why I keep saying it over and over. If you don't develop the steel industry, forget about having stable power supply.
Okay. Ade from Jericho is saying, with multiple grid collapses already in 2026, can we realistically expect stable electricity, let alone 24/7 power, before the end of Tinubu's term?
Why are these grid collapsing? Some of them are old. One.
Obsolete
Two,
machines.
yes, this issue of terrorist attack. Vandalization is also there.
Okay.
It's causing grid collapse. Sometimes when you buy a car, after 5 years, that car has what we call salvage value. No matter how functional the car seems to be. Because in economics, they will say, no, that car was manufactured 5 years ago. For now, it has a salvage value.
Yeah.
That's all. So we have to be honest to ourselves. Most of these grids, they are old. They are old. So iron will definitely rust. So you have to replace it. So the time has come for us to replace most of these grids. And we must also ensure that there is what we call security around our critical infrastructure in this country. When you see something, say something.
Well, in engineering, that's what you call wear and tear.
Yes.
So it also happens to all these equipment.
Yes, it happens.
Well, Ibrahim Emphodasis is saying grid collapses called national embarrassment by NERC. What's government's real plan on averting grid collapses? That's what Ibrahim is asking.
There is one thing you must understand. You know, the current Minister of Power is not an engineer. It was when Professor Batunaji was the Minister of what? Power. He was actually an engineer. Barrister Fashola, Babatunde Fashola, too, was appointed as the Minister of Works.
Yeah.
Power and what? And Housing, 3 ministries. Fine. He did his own best, but his best was not what? Good enough. Was not good enough. So it is only Professor Batunaji I will celebrate because he's a power specialist. So you don't blame Chief Bayo Adelabu because that is not his field. What is just there for is just administrative function. So, but if you appoint someone who is an engineer, who read electronics, who knows what we call the power sector, he will be able to do more. He's going to advise the president on that. I think the minister is listening to this program. He should listen to this program. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm a realist. I'm just trying to say nothing but the truth. That the president, the box lies on his table, not the minister. That let the president go and develop the steel industry. When you develop the steel industry, then you now work with the power sector. The two will work together like a twin. In synergy, things will work. Do you know the steel industry too? It will also assist us in the rail transport. It will also assist us in the road transport too. There's what we call road pavement. Road infrastructure. There was one time engineer Dave Umahi was suggesting that he doesn't want to use bitumen anymore. That he wants to use what called reinforcement. That reinforcement, you have to tie it to what? Iron ore, iron rods, and concrete. That it lasts longer than bitumen. So you have to develop the steel industry in this country. Then when you are talking about security too, you have our own armament too from steel. All these AK-47, AK-49, they are product of what? Of steel, including the bullets.
Okay, so there's the last question I want to pick from here, and it's from Ruth from Adigbayi. It says, all this infrastructure talk, how does it translate to real economic benefits for ordinary Nigerians, vis-a-vis jobs, cheaper goods, or just more promises and promises?
When roads are awarded, it provides more jobs. When contract are awarded, for rail contract are awarded, it provides more jobs. When you want to develop your steel industry, you also provide jobs too. So there is going to be jobs everywhere. So we have to do it the right way so that to develop what? Our own economy. There is difference between economic growth and economic development. We have to, in this country, we have to ensure that we develop the steel sector first. We now develop what? The power sector. The rest will be very easy for you as a country. Ignatius
Ofino, your insights have been really invaluable this morning on the agenda.
Much,
yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Well, infrastructure promises are bold, realities challenging, but 2026 could be pivotal. And that's all for today on the agenda. I am Chike Ogbogu saying good morning to you and have a great day.